Hey everybody, Vivian here with a tutorial that I've prepared for Sizzix. I have two art panels to share. They're made from upcycled Corrugate, so it was a box that I got some supplies shipped to me in. And I'm going to share with you some of the mixed media techniques and the beautiful die cuts that I used in this project, as well as some of my love for hot glue. So here are the two panels that I just cut out of a piece of Corrugate, Corrugate box. And I'm just roughing up the edges because I'm really going for that grungy, aged look. And I am actually going to use the side with this lighter colored tape on it because I think all of those little variations in the surface will end up adding to some impact in the final project in terms of texture. I'm going to gesso the surface of the Corrugate. The purpose of doing this is to create a surface that better absorbs the media that we're going to apply, and also to create a base upon which to apply color. If we were to just apply it upon the Corrugate, the color would not mirror the color that's advertised in the paint or the inks or the mists that we're using. So with this clean white background, we'll have a color that mirrors what we're intending to put on the surface. This is actually a piece of Gemstones Coordinations Color Core cardstock. I used the center portion of this piece for a card project that I recently made. And I couldn't bear to throw away what was left. So this is dry embossed using a Sizzix embossing folder in their new Morrocan line by, I believe it's Dina Long. And aren't those patterns fabulous? So that's going to add some extra texture. I'm just cutting up the pieces to add some interesting texture to my project. Ultimately, there will only be the faintest hint in the final project of the original color here. I'm adding it mostly for the beautiful textures in the embossing. And I'm adhering it using a nice substantial gel medium so that stuff will get into all the nooks and crannies underneath. At this point, I decided to add some background stamping using one of my favorite Hampton Art woodblock stamps. This one is called Distressed Words, and it's from their Seven Gypsies line. I tend to reach for this one a lot, and I love working with woodblock stamps. And even though I know I'm going to be adding lots of media and covering things up, little bits of this stamping will show through in random spots on my project and give it a really neat, organic, aged look. So I like to work in stages, and at this stage I just wanted to break up all that white space and create some interest and see what sticks in the final project. I'm using a permanent ink. This is a solvent-based ink from Stazon because I just want to make sure that none of those little bits of type will be lost because they get wet. So the Stazon will be good for these mixed media applications. This is a die cut of a Brenda Walton Sizzlits die set. And this is called Flights of Fancy, and there's a beautiful large butterfly and another gorgeous smaller butterfly, as well as a dragonfly. And I think, did I use all of them in this project? This is actually cut from a larger piece of Bristol Vellum. And all I did to the Bristol Vellum was rub Distress Ink all over the whole piece in mustard seed and spiced marmalade and spritz it with some water to create some interesting variation and that spottiness that you see in these pieces. And you can see I also cut out some flower shapes from a Sizzix Bigz die. The Sizzix Bigz die is Flower Layers number 7, and this one's been around for a while. I love the Bigz dies because they cut through just about everything you could imagine that you want to craft with. Thin pieces of paper, metal, chipboard, Corrugate. It cuts through everything, and it's very sturdy, so I keep my eyes open for Bigz that I like. This Bigz is really great because it's got those rippled edges on the blooms that are so fun to exaggerate or draw attention to with distressing and some other techniques that I've shown you in previous videos. So I'm just going to place them on the art panels in a way that pleases me. And I'm adhering all of these pieces with the same gel medium. Once all my shapes are down, I actually load up my brush with quite a bit of gel medium and encourage it to go into all the nooks and crannies on the surface. I want to preserve some of that dry embossed area, so I'm not going heavily in that part. But on the other areas that are primarily just flat, I'm laying it on really thick, sort of embedding those insects, those beautiful insects and the blooms in there, giving it sort of an encaustic type of look without having to use encaustic. I also added some leaf shapes. These were cut with coordinations as well. Coordinations Color Core cardstock. And this was using a Sizzix flower bloom with leaves 3D die. That's become one of my new favorite floral dies. For the dimensional flower, as well as for the variety 4 different types of leaves that you get in the set of Sizzlits from Scrappy Cat. Once it was dry, I decided to do some sanding to rub away some of the edges of the die cuts and also rub away some of the, layers of paper like that. I love doing that. It really helps create that grungy feeling in my project. And one thing I also want to mention that I really love about mixed media is oftentimes the wait time that you have, the time in between where things have to dry. You actually get to sort of evaluate what you have and next steps that you want to take. So you don't end up rushing through something or brashly making a decision that you're going to be stuck with that you won't like. So I actually diluted some gesso here to unify all the pieces of my project. As you can see, just the faintest bit of the original colors are still there, and we're going to add some media in just a second to create some interesting movement of color on the project. I did just a little bit of stamping with a beautiful lace stamp that comes in a set of clear stamps from Griffin in conjunction with the Stazon Ink in Jet Black. And this is where we are so far. So I have a basic idea of where I want my hot glue trails to go on this project. I also want to create a lot of places where mists can pool and accumulate. So I used some glass bead gel and just smeared it on there with my finger. And the mists that I use are going to pool underneath all those beautiful little beads. And the beads themselves are going to be great for adding media on the very top surface of the beads. So here's a little bit of my work with hot glue. I've been working with hot glue for many months now, and I love to incorporate them into my grungy projects, in which I want to incorporate a very organic, vascular type of feeling. And I've had a lot of people ask me, how I do it, why they aren't able to create exactly the same effect that I do. And my suggestion would be to just play around. If you want to use hot glue, just play around with it and see what kind of effects you can come up with that are completely and uniquely you. I've seen a couple of great crafters out there create some really interesting effects using the hot glue and these techniques that I share, but with a completely different result. I don't see myself putting down the hot glue gun anytime soon. I really like that idea of vascularity. So you could just leave it as is. It's really cool to see the hot glue sort of magnify the patterns underneath. But what I often tend to do is add mists and inks to really make those vascular shapes and lines. To help those pretty yellows and oranges move across our upcycled Corrugate canvas, I added some distress ink from Tim Holtz. I used these wonderful yellows and oranges in his collection. I used mustard seed and spiced marmalade. And I use that with a blending tool. And I love how it sort of catches the ridges on that those dry emboss pieces that we added very early on. I added some misting using a Tattered Angels mist that I'm just about out of in a light blue color, beautiful light blue color. And the wonderful thing about this use of mixed media is the mists are dissolving some of the pigment that's on there, the Tim Holtz Distress Ink, which is water soluble. It reacts with water. So the areas where the blue and the yellow touch turn a lovely shade of green. I decided to go in with a little bit of the darker blue. It's a concoction that I mixed up and I can't really remember what it was. I believe there's some black velvet Clearsnap SMOOCH in there. Just the tiniest bit and sort of coaxing it to go with my finger where I want it to go. And as you can see, it's going to collect in all the crevices that we've created using the hot glue and the glass beads and the die cuts. Because we covered some areas of those die cuts with the gel medium and allowed that to dry, we are going to be able to preserve the lights of our beautiful golden die cut insects, as well as the areas where we ripped off elements of the die cuts. And here it is. It's a little bit wet. Let me show you some stills of how it looks when it's dry. So you can see in the finished project how we were able to create some really interesting textures in the project, how we were able to make those die cuts pop by treating the paper beforehand with various pigments. And I'm telling you, I treated a whole sheet of Bristol Vellum with that beautiful yellow-orange color, and I will save that for future projects. Here you can see some of that dry embossing that we did using the Sizzix Morrocan embossing folder. Really beautiful collection I encourage you to check out. And some of those beautiful die cuts here, the insects from the Brenda Walton line. Check out your local scrapbooking store for some of these beautiful new dies and embossing folders from Sizzix. You can also get all of the Sizzix products online direct from Sizzix.com. That's www.sizzix.com. It's very fun to online shop there. And if you're looking for any more inspiration, please check me out at www.contadinak.com. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.